Pastor and human rights activist Torli Krua, a refugee of the Liberian Civil War, settled in Boston in 1990. He was instrumental in lobbying members of Congress and policymakers to increase the quota of refugees from Africa being allowed into the United States. He also worked tirelessly in New England and beyond to champion the rights of refugees and immigrants, as well as participatory democracy in Africa. Krua founded the Universal Human Rights International and worked with thousands of immigrants from 38 different countries over the span of 20 years. Rev Kura joined us in studio to discuss the recent election results in Liberia this week and the role he believes America should play in his country. This summer, we had the opportunity to do a story on your nephew, Jefferson Krua, who was running for the Liberian National Legislature.
Yes.
To represent Nimba County. The election was actually held earlier this week on Tuesday, October 10th.
Yesterday.
Yes. Can you share the results?
So the results, I think he came second, but they haven't completed counting everything yet. But there were about 12 persons running for the district, and he came second. So as of now, he didn't make the cut. The incumbent, I think, won the race.
Okay. Well, this was his first time running.
This was his first time running, yes. And he's the first in the family to venture into politics.
What do you make of the current election process in Liberia? What types of changes would you like to see made?
It's not just Liberia, it's across the entire continent of Africa. And one of the issues is it's not free. They have a very high bar of financial requirements. For example, you have to pay up to $1,500 to register. You must have a minimum of 10,000 United States dollars in your bank account. That's not money you're going to use for campaigning or anything else. You need a $100,000 insurance bond. I think it's just burdensome for people. This is a poor country. And if you have such a high financial requirement, just for registration for civic leadership contests, you exclude a whole bunch of people, and it becomes something that only benefits incumbents. So I think it's not free and fair.
You've been very vigilant about the challenges that Liberians face, particularly Liberian refugees here in the United States. Can you talk about some of the initiatives that you're working on in order to advance their rights here with Universal Human Rights International?
So this country is also not a level playing field. Liberia is a country that was created by two acts of the United States Congress, the force of the United States Navy, and it was created as a place that would serve the domestic and foreign policy interests of the United States of America with African Americans. And for today, to have refugees from Liberia living in this country for decades without permits to work is an indictment on this country. That's not the way it should be. People should treat each other fairly. And so I see a lot of problems with, like, even the refugee process in this country, in the United States, the migrant process, and all of these things that are happening. United States is one country. All refugees from around the world cannot come here. But those who come should be treated humanely. And that has not happened for Liberians. And when you look at Liberia, a country that was founded by the United States of America for citizens of the United States, people of color, codified racism is still dividing this country. And we see that playing out in how Liberians as human beings are being treated.
And you spoke about the very special relationship that America has with Liberia and the fact that it essentially created the country for African Americans too.
The creation was illegal. You cannot create a country for citizens of the United States just because they are people of color. This country was founded on the principle, all men are created equal. We hold these truths to be self-evident, all men are created equal. But then a few years later, they passed a new law that said only white people would be citizens of the United States. And the creation of Liberia was to remove free blacks from the United States to a place where according to the Constitution of 1824 that was approved in Washington, D.C., all persons born in Liberia are entitled to all privileges enjoyed by citizens of the United States. All persons moving from the United States to Liberia will still retain their citizenship. It didn't happen. It was a trick. And the trick continues today, ravaging the lives of thousands of descendants of people who built this country through their sweat and tears, building the United States. So this country has not lived up to the principles of all men are created equal. And all of the other stuff this country tries to do around the world, like going to fight in Ukraine, they undermine that by not being able to mitigate the harm of codified racism. It still exists, and it's breaking this country apart.
So what responsibility would you say the U.S. has to the people of Liberia now?
United States of America needs to realize that the creation, this is their creation. It was done illegally, but it is the creation of the United States. Number one, the first thing that needs to happen, you got to treat people as human beings. The United States is not currently treating Liberians as human beings at all. And so they have to treat Liberians as human beings. And the people from Liberia that are here should be given a chance to work in this country like anyone else. We had a bill passed that was signed by President Donald Trump. It's called the Liberian Refugee Fairness Act. It excludes a whole bunch of Liberians. Thousands of people are still living here that cannot work many years after a war that was plotted in Boston by Americans and Liberians. People of Liberian descent started the war that drove these people here. So I think that treat people fairly like human beings, give them a chance to be able to work, which has not been the case under Obama, under Biden, under Trump. We still have some of these people still living here.
And finally, how can people support the work that you're doing with the organization?
We have a letter that's going to the Tom Lantos Bipartisan Human Rights Commission in Congress. We support HR 40. I think there should not be any money spent overseas to try to mitigate harm of Russian colonization when you cannot pass HR 40 to study the impact of racism on Native Americans in Native American reservations, Indian reservations in this country. It hasn't happened. So that's one of the things that we need to do. We are sending the letter out, and we would like to have the Committee for Inclusion at the State House to work with us so that people who have been here for a long term that don't have permits to work to be given a chance. These are people that are not going to be lodged in hotels. We have not been fair at all in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in treating people who've been here for years that don't have permits to work, that came here because of a civil war. People need to treat other human beings as human beings, period.